Well, good evening. Organically growing the Barbados economy. Let me start with a definition of an economy. An economy is defined in some dictionaries as the careful management of our resources. So if we keep that in mind, the careful management of resources. And society puts together several types of resources. We institutionalize some, such as education, healthcare, law and order. Those are all resources that the public have the use of. So it's not just about what's natural or what we find there around us. We put together resources. I would like to think that organic farming should be seen as of equal importance to those other resources because of the value that organic farming has as an environmental management system, just what you were talking about. We can manage our environment carefully if we look at how we go about producing food, and that becomes one of those indicators of what we are doing with our environment. Now, agriculture, in the sense that we look at it, requires biodiversity. If it's not biodiverse in so many ways, we don't get the full benefit of it. And the earth itself is the model of biodiversity. We are a sample of that, in so much as we have within us something called an immune system. That immune system works to help us overcome illness, to live healthily, and we have to feed it. We have to nourish that immune system. The earth itself also has an immune system, and it works within the microbiotic, right up to us as human beings. We become the embodiment of the earth's immune system because we can think, we can act, we can plan, and we can interact with nature. So the very things that we need to keep us healthy, we can work with nature in order to keep us healthy, and the two work together. Now, what made me come to the idea that we can have a national type policy similar to those other institutionalized resources is a meeting we had years ago in Barbados. We were met by a gentleman came to see us at one of our organic farms, a gentleman from Kenya. He was doing an evaluation for the European Union on one of our small organic farms. And in conversation with this gentleman, I asked him how much land does he farm in Africa. And he said he has fields on his farm which are larger than Barbados, if you can imagine that. It's individual fields that are bigger than this country. I was impressed. But it made me think, if one man can have fields bigger than our entire country, why can't we see Barbados as one farm with one national policy, similar to national policies you have in education and healthcare? Why not have it as one big organic farm, or in some cases a small organic farm? Several small fields, but one centralized plan, one centralized system of management. But to do that, it requires an entrepreneurial mentality, a group of entrepreneurs or a very strong visionary entrepreneur who looks at the need to centralize the accommodation of such a system. So you put together a food hub, a place where all organic food can be bought and sold to this entrepreneurial hub. The entrepreneurial hub then grades it, packages it, washes it, and redistributes, a private sector managed hub. It acts as a fertilizer. You get the ability then to motivate other people to grow organically, because there's nothing better for a farmer than to know I can grow something and deliver it somewhere and it's sold. But you get the farmers then to buy into the hub. The farmers become shareholders in that hub. They don't just say, well, I can sell to Tom today and Dick tomorrow. They sell to the hub because they have a share in it. And that fertilizer then spreads out. You get people who may be doing, let's say, sugarcane farming. The scale that we do sugarcane farming that conventionally cannot compete in the world market. We just don't have the volume to do the kind of, to make the kind of money that sugarcane could make. But what we could do, and this was pointed out to us at a conference in 2001, Prince Charles said to us, he's involved in a company in Europe that produces chocolate. But they went to Guyana and they found some cocoa plantations that were abandoned. And they invested in these cocoa plantations and changed them into organic plantations, producing organic cocoa. They then had sugar growers in Guyana start to produce sugar cane organically, and had that sugar processed at the factories in between the normal cycle of conventional sugar, so they had an organic sugar. So now they have a product that they sell to Europe for a premium price using what was already there. Now, one of the challenges of going organic is labor. And any farmer will tell you it's very difficult to find sufficient labor to make organic agriculture viable. However, we're fortunate in that the resources we have, some of the human capital we have, we can turn it into the living capital by putting it into nature. Government right now must employ maybe 200 or 300 people who do roadside work. They use hoes, machetes, weed whackers, forks. They work in the sun. Same conditions as farmers, but their work isn't as productive in the small or the short-term sense. Now, government could reassign those workers, those 200 or 300 people, to organic farms or into agriculture, where their short-term output, using the same tools, under the same conditions, would now have a social and an environmental benefit. We produce more food, more organic food, and we can reduce our need for importation in a very short time, in maybe 3 months. You could quite easily see the amount of food we have to bring in reduced. The government could still pay these workers, guaranteeing them their work, but they're managed now by private sector farmers. And even larger farms, maybe 100 acres, could have 50 of these workers working there. You take away that cost to the farmer of labor, which is probably about 40% of his output. And that then is going to show us we need to spend less money bringing in food. We can still employ our people. And within maybe 6 months or a year, you could take those people off the government payroll because the farms would become successful enough to employ them individually. So you've worked out a way to move resources that may not be as productive as they could be into an area of what we call living capital, where they can now produce something that the country needs in several different ways. If you have organic agriculture as a national policy, you also have something to market as a culture. Right now, our culture seems to be about events. Every so often you have an event and you say it's a cultural event. But culture also is a way of life. It's not just an event every so often. So if you have a national policy where you're undertaking to undertake organic agriculture, you can market that to tourism. You can market to all the health and wellness people that want to have organic food. And the demand is there. Locally, we need to have a cleaner environment. We need to spend less money importing things. We need to use less chemicals on our farms and in our systems of development. And we need to be able to strive to maintain a level of development without going too far. So in my way of thinking, defining wealth, if an economy is the careful management of resources, then wealth would be the sustainable and ethical management of our resources. That's all I could tell you. Thank you.